to share a little bit is maybe, like Yana said, a specific example or industry examples of smart manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, clean manufacturing being applied, right? And specifically, I want to share how Schneider Electric approaches the topic of advanced manufacturing and industrial transformation. For those who aren't familiar with us, Schneider Electric is a company that provides energy management technologies and solutions, as well as industrial automation technologies and solutions. So you can probably imagine how those two, power supply and then process control are pretty core to manufacturing processes. Um, Manufacturing is not just a topic that's, core to Catalyze and core to Schneider, but it's a key theme emerging throughout all of industry, right? As Sophie was able to share with us. And it's really important in that a lot of the challenges that manufacturing companies are facing today are getting more and more complex, right? From supply chain disruptions, extreme weather events, geopolitical turbulence, and generally we see these complexities increasing over time. The world doesn't seem to really be getting simpler. So companies need to adapt their corporate strategies to meet the moment, meet the challenge, and by and large, that's the first place companies look to, right? What is our vision? What are our goals? How are we getting there? But oftentimes, the manufacturing strategy or OT or operational technology strategy gets left behind, and that can be a critical mistake, right? Because if we're not bringing our manufacturing processes into this new digital age, then we're not going to have the capabilities to meet those corporate strategies and visions we're defining. So, on that note, I want to share how we transformed our Lexington, Kentucky plant into what Schneider Electric terms as a smart factory. The Lexington plant was built in the 1950s, so very old, but still a major manufacturing in our location in our supply chain. We have over 500 employees on site, produce over 3.5 million load centers and safety switches a year at the plant. For those not familiar with those products, safety switches and load centers help to control and manage electrical power loads in industrial applications. So again, here we've got a plant that's nearly 70 years old, and the challenge was, it's a core part of our distribution change. Instead of building a new plant elsewhere or trying to relocate facilities, how can we modernize this brownfield facility to make sure that we're, being energy efficient, resource efficient, not just for the planet, but also so that we can remain competitive with our competition and a preferential choice for our customers. Before diving into the how of the Lexington transformation, it might help to clarify a little bit about what does Schneider mean when we say smart factory, and in general, what is meant when we're talking about advanced manufacturing, clean manufacturing, industrial transformation, right? In my experience, when talking about these topics, several core themes emerge independent of company, market sector, or even where you're located, right? Geographic region. Advanced manufacturing is meant to drive efficiency and reliability throughout operations, bring to bear innovative technologies that can boost productivity and safety, and maximize process availability, uptime, OEE across core processes. But it's important to note we don't strive towards these goals solely to market ourselves as sustainable or as a thought leader or cutting edge on technology. We leverage these technologies to better meet our goals and values as a business. To embark on a digital or operational transformation journey, a company has to have a sound strategic framework in place first. In the case of Schneider, our vision for advanced manufacturing is focused on the 6 core pillars you see here. I'm not going to walk you through each pillar because it's kind of tailored to our strategy, and it's going to differ from company to company. But I can call out a few themes that you're going to see in frameworks for companies that are doing digital transformation, advanced manufacturing well. First, you'll notice that core to a few of these dimensions is the people element, right? Here you'll see governance and change management, which helps to ensure that our employees and also leadership are brought in from the ground up, right? What is the digital transformation we're trying to achieve? What processes need the most, advancement right now? What new technologies do we have to train our employees on, right? You can't do digital transformation or industrial transformation on the technology alone. If the people, employees aren't at the center on it, then the change is going to be superficial. The investment and efforts are going to be wasted. Second, and touched on this earlier, but really have to hammer it home, while each of these pillars all have their own focus, they all can be tied back to the overarching goals of the business, right? Again, sustainability, energy, and energy management you see as a core pillar here. It's not sustainability solely for the sake of being green. Benefiting the planet is definitely a core value of Schneider's, but it also helps us to optimize our cost. If we can make those safety switches and load centers using less energy and less resources, but still have the same output and functionality, then we're lowering our OpEx, our operating costs, and improving margins, right? So industrial transformation has to align to the business goals. It can't be done in a vacuum. So once we have the transformation strategy and vision defined, we then built out an operational technology architecture with digitally enabled solutions at all levels of the plant, right? So using connected devices at the plant floor, whether it's IoT sensors or Ethernet connected variable speed drives, even HMIs or human machine interface screens, helping operators to get better insights and control of the process. These devices all help us to collect data from the plant floor and then transfer it to apps in the cloud or digital environment that can help us derive insights from that data. So, getting a little specific here. So, what does that mean for Schneider? For example, we have programs like EcoStruxure Asset Advisor, which helps to monitor machine health, or Power Monitoring Expert, which helps us to monitor the amount of energy a process is using. So, we have the sensors at the plant floor being then taking data from the actual operations. That data gets collected by edge data control devices like programmable logic controllers, PLCs, or data boxes, and then we can transfer that data into applications that give us insights, right? So now we can see, oh, hey, your extrusion process is running at 20% higher temperature than it has historically. You might be overdue for a maintenance event or have some variables running out of spec there. Or, hey, your circuit board printing process is using 3 to 4% more raw materials than it has historically. You may need to refine your parameters. And a lot of these adjustments can actually even be automated with the advent of machine learning and AI, right? So in some cases, it's the process fine-tuning itself and self-correcting to use less energy, create less waste. Other cases, it's flagging to operators and supervisors for a human intervention, right? The solutions we put in place at Lexington, or this solution specifically, there were more architectures brought in, but this specific architecture was put in place and helped to achieve a 5% reduction in downtime, about a 3% reduction, 3 to 4% reduction in annual energy spend as well. And this specific architecture had a payback period of under 6 months. And generally, not for those of you who haven't had to go before management, if you go in front of your boss and say, "Hey, I've got a project here that is going to be great for us, but it's got a 5-year payback," you're generally going to get shut down on that, right? But if you see a payback period of a year or under, especially with hard savings that can be measured like energy and raw materials, that's a pretty big green light. So less than 6 months was a great win here. It's important to note that this type of change doesn't happen overnight, right? The solution I showed on that last page, that architecture took a few months to design and implement, but we've been transforming the Lexington plant in phases over the past decade or two. Transforming these OT architectures in brownfield facilities takes time, not just to get the right strategy in place, but again, also that change management. How are we going to update, incorporate, our employees' vision from the plant floor? How are we going to get them skilled on these new machines and processes? And how are we going to make sure that, they are bought in so that this new change is sustainable and lasting for the plant, right? And if you don't follow through those steps, or if you try to do these steps all overnight, we see a failure mode that some companies fall into is, hey, let's transform an entire plant operation within, a 1 or 2 year time frame. And that's a really big challenge that usually doesn't go great. Lexington isn't the only plant Schneider's transformed into a smart factory. We took that template we deployed at Lexington and a few other pilot cases across the globe and scaled it throughout our manufacturing network. So we're now up to over 100 digitally enabled smart factories and distribution centers, of which 5 have been recognized by the World Economic Forum as advanced manufacturing lighthouses, and an additional two have been recognized as sustainable manufacturing lighthouses, thanks to the energy savings and carbon reductions we've realized in those processes. And then furthermore, it's important to know it's not just a transformation happening at Schneider factories, right? We're doing this with our customer base, with our clients. Here we have the Zhengzhou, Yangzibao, foodstuff company, a exporter of confectionery goods based out of China, who's been in operation for a few decades. They were looking to get better control of their processes, reduce waste, and also eliminate and streamline some of the paperwork tracking they had to do for the batches they produced, right? So we brought in an architecture that had a manufacturing execution system, a digitally enabled plant SCADA system, and again, HMIs or screens, touch screens collecting data at the plant floor to give the operators insight into the process. And in this solution, we realized a 10% increase in production efficiency and also a 5% drop in production costs due to the reduction in material and energy waste, right? So, I obviously, I'm working at Schneider in our industrial automation strategy team. I have the Schneider lens, but it's not just happening at Schneider. It's not even just happening at our customers. As Sophie was showing us earlier, this is happening all throughout industry, right? And both heavy and discrete industry. So, this industrial transformation is already underway. I promise you, if you look at any manufacturing company, that stock has performed well over the past decade. I'll bet you good money they have an advanced manufacturing initiative in place or strategy in place, and those leading the pack make sure that people are at the center of said initiatives. No, I kind of rapid fire this. Wanted to save time on the back end for questions and discussions, but I don't expect you to remember everything I covered here. But if you do take away a few key learnings, I ask you remember industrial transformation is already underway, being led by manufacturers who are seeing increasing profits and leading the pack. Objectives like sustainability can and must benefit both the business and the planet if they're going to be sustaining and lasting. And smart manufacturing initiatives only last when they're designed with people and the employees at the center of the strategy.